Welcome back to another episode of Tech for Thought, where we break down the latest in AI news and finance and technology. Last episode, we talked about some cool stuff such as like tiny recursive models, ARC-AGI, Sora 2, and then the Eagle Eye, Anduril's Eagle Eye, which basically looked like a video game. That was really cool. We talked about that. This week, we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences. All of us went to conferences, so we all have some stuff to talk about in that regard. And some cool, like you guys actually spoke at some of these conferences, so that's pretty cool. I want to ask you guys some questions about that. Then we'll probably dive into Microsoft and OpenAI's new deal that they have, and then also Amazon and Perplexity. Sahib, you sent a pretty interesting articles about that, or just in general was talking about it. And so, but yeah, so first things first, how was it speaking at the conference? What was it like?
I'll let Chris go since it was first.
Yeah. So this was my first time speaking at something like this. Obviously nerve-wracking getting ready and the day before kind of stuff. But it was really neat to experience. I mean, all around. Getting there, the location was awesome, and just kind of having the opportunity to see what the prep is like and the back end of everything like that. We got there before everything was put together at the booth and stuff like that. So it was cool just seeing them all laying carpet and getting everything built up and stuff. That was pretty neat. But yeah, I mean, speaking at the event was an experience that I'm actually really thankful for. It was a big growth opportunity and something that can kind of transfer into a lot of things. But also kind of the feeling of providing business value to people is something that I like. Getting to speak alongside Sahib was also made it a little bit easier with his old people experience, him being the old.
What's the name of the conference you guys were talking at, and like what is it? I guess what's the like what's
Yeah.
it for?
Yeah, so Community Summit, North America. I mean, this year was obviously really focused around a lot of like Copilot. So if you see Copilot everywhere, our session was actually on security and governance around Copilot. Um, so kind of I mean, everything from planning to implementation, so we just kind of covered what are some implementation strategies, what should you have in place, everything around like getting your Copilot studio set up and all of that. So best practices, everything like that. So something that's very important. And then yeah, I mean, Community Summit in A, there was what, 5,000 people there?
Dang.
Yeah, it was
Whoa.
5,400, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Had a decent amount of ours. And then I know Sahib had one right after. And I sat in that one. It was really good and it was completely packed. There was actually people standing in the back. And so it was a really
Oh
interesting
wow.
one, really a lot more advanced tech, in a tech way, So ours was more of governance and which isn't as sexy.
Yeah.
But his was on multi-agent orchestration, and I'll let him explain that. But yeah, his that's obviously a lot more sexy. So
What is that?
yeah, so multi-agent orchestration is essentially, having a set of agents that, carry out you know, a bunch of specific tasks. So you can have, a parent agent. So a parent agent can have a bunch of child agents, and then those child agents can do like specific, very based. So let's say we have, a parent agent, right?
Mhm.
And the parent agent talks to or has access to a bunch of other agents that have been spun up. So you have your finance team agent, you have your sales team agent, you have your, supply chain agent. And so, let's say a user asks like, hey, how much of, this product do I have in the system? And so that parent agent will think of the question and say like, hey, okay, based on this question, I need to figure out, inventory of a specific product. And then it looks at all of its child agents and says, hey, which one of these child agents is best suited to answer this question? And so then obviously the orchestrator, the parent agent, will then pick the supply chain agent because the supply chain agent already has access to, that information, and then, will send that information back to the user. You just have, a single agent that is talking to, a set of child agents that, technically can stand on their own. But, let's say, finance team needs access to the amount of inventory that, the supply chain warehousing team has built, that agent. And so let's say the finance team needs access to that information because they need to figure out how much money they're spending at certain vendors, et cetera. So, instead of the finance team building their own, warehousing agent, we just have a intranet of agents essentially that the finance team can talk to, the parent orchestrator agent that, everybody has access to. And then that agent talks to an agent that's already been built. So there's no reason for another agent to be built. It's just a multi-agent orchestration engine that talks to a bunch of other agents that have already been built for each separate team. And so, this mitigates, siloed teams, siloed information, siloed data, and allows, teams to collaborate without, having to, wait for a specific user. Let's say, a user goes on, or let's say the whole warehousing team takes a break and, I don't know, goes for dinner for some reason, or goes to lunch, and, the finance team needs that information. All they have to do is ask that agent, and, talks to that agent.
That's crazy. So it does the work for you essentially, whatever it's tasked to do.
Yeah, essentially what it's tasked to do.
So yeah.
Yeah, so Microsoft in general has, multiple different conferences. So they have a community conference side, and then they have their own conferences. So their own conferences are things like Microsoft Build, Microsoft Ignite, Power Platform Community Conference, and then they have, a bunch of other. Those are the biggest ones during the year. So the one we were at the 2 weeks prior was the Community Summit, and that was a business application summit that was basically hosted by a community organization. And so then, just like any other conference, you if you want to speak, you apply to speak, etc. But obviously, like Chris said, the biggest subject of the conference was AI within business applications.
Mhm.
So it was great, we're talking with Chris and, talking about security and governance because, there's always going to be a need for security and governance. And, with AI, you need to be more, you need to have more scrutiny on what's going on in your environments where these things are deployed. And then, talking about multi-agent orchestration, allowing, teams to cross collaborate and, help with those, siloed data stores and things like that. So it was a good conference for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess sorry, and I'm just curious about this conference in general and your guys' experience. What
Yeah.
would you say are some like cool takeaways that both you guys learned, or maybe something new that could just like out of something that caught your eye that you learned at this conference?
At this conference, I wouldn't say there was a lot of stuff that I learned per se. Um, I've been to this particular conference before. Um, so it was good, being able to see how much the subject has essentially changed from like, standard business applications and processes and things like that, to more of a figuring out how to actually utilize AI and integrate these into our business applications. And but I'd say the conference that I saw the biggest change was probably the Power Platform conference. Power Platform Community Conference is, Microsoft conference that talks about, and the subject matter is their low code platform, right? But the interesting thing is during the keynote, their biggest subject essentially was that low code is dead, or how they put it was
I
low
saw
code
that like
as we
a
know it
hundred
is
times.
dead,
What's
which
that
is
mean?
which is pretty interesting because Power Platform is, one of the biggest low code platforms out there. And so what that basically means is that they're going more towards a vibe coding type feel, where
Okay.
they're building M365 agents that can help you build single use apps and stuff like that. Now you can use essentially generative AI to create your own apps within Power Platform. And you can go more pro code, where now you can wrap your pro code apps in a low code wrapper, so it gets that Entra security. So it was very interesting to see the dynamic shift from platform, a conference that's supposed to be celebrating your low code platform,
Hmm.
where they have basically pivoted and kind of basically got rid of that low code.
Well, from what I was reading, it was still kind of low code. I mean, you're still just describing what you want versus just building it yourself, right? From what I gathered, I mean, it's still viable for people that are not, in the world of coding and stuff. So it's still, I wouldn't classify it as like high code or anything like that. It's still just being like, I need this, build this. So I feel like it, like you said, like how they presented it of, you know, it's just the way we know it is dead because now it's maybe a little bit more streamlined and now you're kind of leveraging something like Copilot versus probably doing a lot more reading and researching and kind of building it yourself by hand. So I feel like it's maybe just their big selling point is it's still low code, but we've made it way better and it will take you even less time. That's how I kind of gathered from reading and stuff. Because I probably saw on LinkedIn like 500 freaking posts of uh low code is dead, low code is dead. And it's all like the whoever the speaker was, I can't remember his name, but everybody posting so and so was amazing saying this is dead. So and so is this. It's just all people's pictures from a different angle in the audience. I'm pretty sure I messaged you even inside of like, dude, if I see another post about this low code is dead, I'm gonna lose it. Because I think the first day that everybody got out of that, I legitimately probably saw like 15 posts on it, and I wasn't scrolling that long. I hate on LinkedIn how people all like post the same thing all the time.
Yeah, it's like a whole
So
hype train, and it's just like everyone's just regurgitating the same content.
Oh,
It's
sounds like
crazy.
OpenAI and their little army of influencers.
Yeah.
they know what they're
That's
doing
Um,
social media.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier, since you are
yeah.
dealing with, actual code. It's not like you're pasting, already established, buttons, and then you're just changing of how round the button is. So you're still having to, deal with code, and you are now able to actually edit that code as well. So obviously they didn't like get rid of all the low code capabilities, but I do think that in general this whole conference was, about, hey, now you can actually code and make pro code apps, which was interesting, because the question
Kind of
remains
defeats the
is.
purpose, right? Of like Power Platform, their whole selling point is anybody can make something. And so now you're saying, okay, well, you better know how to engineer prompts correctly. You better know how to do every little in and out thing. I will say it'll depend on how well they transform this over time. Because like
Mhm,
recently, I built that whole website, right? That I was showing you with Manus, and it did a really good job. And I mean, some of it was like little things that I asked, like, hey, I don't like the layout of these icons. Can we do this? Or actually, yeah, like these buttons, I don't like that they've had this round outline around them. Can we make them a little bit less round, like more square or whatever? And then I was like, still don't like it, so let's get rid of that, right? And
mhm,
so if they can make it to where if you're able to interact with it to that level and it'll be able to generate content to a pretty acceptable level, I think then it'll be good. I don't know. I was there. I don't know how good it is right now. I know all of the M365 Copilot stuff is still developing, working and doing a lot of development in Power Apps and seeing it pop up on my screen all the time when I don't want it to. Uh, I know that they're still developing it more. I know it's not
Yeah.
perfect right now, so this is probably their first, hey, this is our direction, which is my assumption on why they sold it so hard. And it seems like a lot of people bit on it. I mean, we had some leaders at RSM posting about it as well. Um, and so obviously it's going to be a direction for the future. And I think, you know, sometimes we've got to accept that and see how we can integrate, like as consultants, we need to be able to stop and look at, okay, well, how do we help users understand this and, not just accept it, but understand like why it's valuable to them and how it will improve their life. Um, I think that's kind of the hardest part for everybody is because right now AI stuff is just being shoved down your throat everywhere. And it's kind of making people a little bit more against it to some degree. They're a little bit less likely to adopt it. Your everyday employee might just get tired of it. And because it's just being puked all over you, you're you tend to lose sight of the value and where am I going to use this? Why am I going to use this? Like I said with the Copilot stuff popping up all the time, even I'm like, why do I need Copilot on this forum to do these things? Like what am I even supposed to do right now with this?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I had to, out of just curiosity one day, go in and read on about it because they don't exactly give you an explanation in the system of what it is. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing is they have to find a good balance. And I think maybe they need to stop with all the little pop-up windows everywhere, especially in like Power Apps, and maybe do one thing and make it, maybe it is more like an orchestrator where if you do need to edit something on a form or you need to change things around or you need to do this or you need to do that, there's still just one place you go for that. You click on it, you tell Copilot what you want rather than I opened up my form, there's a Copilot thing. Oh, there's also, I went back to my views. Oh, there's another Copilot thing. Oh, I just opened up my app. There's another Copilot thing. So I think all of it is about right now. They're just trying to say, look at what we have and what we can do. And hopefully they refine that over time, which I'm sure will.
Yeah, I feel like people who are slow to adopt or don't adopt, people who are just are hesitant about AI in general, are people who are just stuck in kind of like their own ways and they don't know the benefits. There was this conference that I went to today, specifically in healthcare, and there were these nurses, these informaticists, which is, I didn't know this, but it's a blend of you have to have you have to have a nursing background, but then you're also in IT, is how they explained it to me. And they were saying that well, these nurses who have never used AI or just basically have done it the old way their whole life are now being exposed to all these large amounts of data and the use of AI can now they can develop these insights using Epic has a software called I forget the name of it, but it allows for all these automations and there are people who are just slow to adopt in general. And sometimes I think the reason why they're slow to adopt is because the solutions that could they could end up using are just long shots and no one wants to really, I guess, spend the effort to go look for something. And if they could just do it right, how they've been doing it all the time, why change? And so I feel like that's just a common theme. If maybe, I guess, what argument, I guess, would you say to non-adopters or people who are slow to adopt to AI that could, it could benefit them. But I guess like how would you get that buy-in from people who are slow to adopt or wouldn't even adopt in general? And for like just for any industry, it doesn't have to be healthcare.
Yeah, I would want to say that whenever these companies are implementing, AI features and things like that, they need to take they need to take into consideration that there's going to be people that are slow to adopt, right? Whether they're just, not as big on technology, maybe they're not as trusting, maybe they just don't want to take the time to learn it. I think you have to implement a proper training strategy. So you've got to have your managers take some time to explain it and maybe show examples rather than just saying, these are the capabilities, It's one thing to have everybody hop on a meeting and show them a slide deck of the capabilities of this new thing you've implemented versus this is how you do your job today. This is where you can use this, how you can use this, and why you might want to use it, and show them as you go through the process. Because if I'm, with the Power App stuff, right? If you just tell me, oh, you can go in and have it build an app for you. Now because I'm curious about it, might go and do that. But people that are like, I know how to build a Canvas app. Why would I go do this? They're going to, maybe there's somebody that's slower to adopt there because you haven't really taken the time to show them. And now they would then have to take the time to figure it out themselves on what's a good use case. Like when ChatGPT first came out, or a lot of these other orchestrators or anything like that have come out, a lot of people's main thing is, okay, I can ask it to search for stuff, but what else can I use it for? That's why
Mm.
ChatGPT started putting these little recommendation things down there, and a lot of these agents do that now, right? Uh, because people were like, okay, it's basically Google, like what else can it do? Um, and so finding use cases and showing them use cases is probably going to be, you want them to see the wow factor, right? Like, oh my
Mhm.
God, this is so cool that I can do this. I don't have to spend 45 minutes or do a bunch of other research and figure out how to fix a problem. I could just really quickly go in and say, this is my problem. Uh, how do I go about fixing it? Um, and something like that tends to go over better. And when you show the value, the business value to people, that's when they're going to be quicker to adopt because you're like, oh, this is useful. This isn't just something my company's now telling me to use just because they spent money on it. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. So my emphasis would be training strategies and implementation
Mhm.
strategies.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue when it comes to companies implementing, AI strategy, AI solutions is that a lot of these companies try to force AI into every single aspect they can force AI. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we see AI pilot programs, AI MVPs fail. Is because these companies don't take the time to actually understand the ROI of the specific use case that they're trying to automate. Another big issue is data quality. If you're going to try to automate and throw AI at, a business process, but your entire business process is shit, and your AI, your data that you're trying to integrate into this process is shit, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues on top of that is the fact that a lot of companies try to push AI onto their employees without actually getting any input or buy-in from their employees. If you don't
Mhm.
get input or buy-in from your employees and you just force them to use a product that they had no say in, they're not going to want to use that product. They're going to say like, hey, I had no say in what and how this was built, even though I'm working on the front line, I'm literally doing this job every day. Why wasn't I consulted on how this was implemented, how
Hmm.
this is essentially how this automation does the job that I'm supposed to do? So those are probably the three biggest factors in why, you don't get employee buy-in, and why, these pilot programs and things fail. And so unless those things are addressed, and obviously the thing Chris said was, change management and training, you're not going to have employees that are going to want to use these things.
How often, in your guys' opinion, do you think change management should discuss like important, like, is there, I guess, a formalized way of letting people know that, hey, we're gonna adopt AI? How do and how often should like a change management board, I guess, or a change advisory board meet to discuss things like that? Chris, I know you kind
11
of
times
talked
out of
about
10.
11 times out of 10.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, whenever
Yeah.
we implement something, anytime we implement something, we always allocate time for change management, even to the IT team, right? If once we build a product, who's going to take care of the product? The
Hmm.
IT team. They're going to be the ones
Change
stuck.
management is literally one of the most important steps in the process. So I worked for a financial advising firm before coming to RSM, and they had just funny enough, they had actually switched to Dynamics CRM at the time. And there was, being I was just an intern. So being on that very bottom line, seeing everybody's reaction to it, because it was a complete overhaul. But they didn't refer to all of the basically the other bottom line or like midline people even. They only kind of talked with stakeholders, like high level stakeholders, and really high up people. There was no, hey, this is how's your job process. They just looked at, okay, this is what the old system looked like. We can basically just copy that and make it look prettier, right? There was no improvement of job flow. There was no asking people if they were okay with the current process, if they were okay with where they were planning to change stuff to, where they changed it to. Um, so like the way they did it was they had activities or whatever, right? We had activities, and you would, you know, make a phone call. You would report everything that happened on the phone call. Did you generate an opportunity? Okay, you mark it as an opportunity and so on, right? But the way they did it before was pretty straightforward. But the way that they ended up implementing it was all over the place. It wasn't just a straightforward process. Like now for our system, you just, okay, we have an opportunity here, gonna generate it into a lead, go through steps for that, and blah blah blah, right? Pretty straightforward. But their process was like three different pages to do different things for one facet of just an opportunity. And before, even though it looked like shit, you had one page where you could put all your notes and things for that opportunity. So they didn't reference these people to ask, hey, is this going to work out for your day-to-day process? And of course, something that took them 5 minutes after a phone call before is now taking them 20 minutes, or that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point, right? That
Hmm.
compiles your expectation is, say it's 80 calls, and if say it's 5 minutes extra time per call, that's a ton of wasted time. So change management is always going to be important on how you go about it because it's going to impact every level.
One thing I
One thing
noticed, I guess, like a common theme across companies that want to adopt AI is, and Sahib, you kind of touched on it earlier, is data quality issues. Firms are not able to effectively adopt AI because of data quality issues. And I guess one thing that popped in my head when I thought about this was, are companies having, do they have, I guess, an inventory in your guys' experience? Do companies usually have an inventory of all the different types of softwares that they use? that then they get that data from. And like if they were to have that inventory, I guess how do you even begin to inventory, I guess, all of the systems? Because there was a presentation that I watched on cloud security or just the cloud in general, and one of the things that they said that they do when they assess a company's, like, I guess, cloud security, and is they the company that they're assessing it for usually has some sort of inventory of all the softwares that they use. And that in turn, the softwares that they use are what give them the data that they then could potentially use for AI or just like any type of analytics. So I guess in your guys' experience, have you guys seen something similar to that? I guess, is it even standard practice for companies to start inventorying their software so that they know where all their data is coming from, like every source?
I mean, if you want your company to survive and carry on, your company should already know what softwares they use. I mean, the three, or technically the two biggest softwares that a company uses is a CRM system, which is their customer relationship management system, and then their enterprise resource management system, where in the enterprise resource management system, it could be, financial, supply chain, inventory, HR, all of that. And then, you have your other systems sprinkled in. You could have your, service system. In Microsoft's case is Dynamics 365 for field service. So you need to understand, what softwares you're using. If you're using legacy apps, then you need to decide whether, if you're going to do this AI thing, are you going to, convert that into, a cloud app, so you have easier access to that data, or are you going to keep that legacy app that might work, that might have data on like a on-prem server, and are you going to make sure that you can create a on-prem to cloud connector so AI can, access that data, or are you going to have AI directly on the on-prem server instead and use local AI? So there's lots of different things a company needs to think about when, assessing everything that they use. If a company might not integrate AI into every facet of the business, so they might, they'll probably pick the easiest and you know easiest AI option, like a HR chatbot or IT chatbot, to get, you know backing of corporate, so that they, can show like, hey, we're using AI here, it's working, can we do AI somewhere else? So going back to your original point of, taking an inventory of the systems that you use, that should just be standard practice.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I'd wondered, and I was even wondering, like, I mean, it sounds in theory like everybody should do it, but I feel like a lot of companies are don't do it, and sometimes it leads to a lot of convoluted conversations in terms of the data sources and the data quality. So it was just interesting. One thing that popped in my mind. I don't know if that's something that you guys come across, like an inventory, like a company's, if they inventory their like their softwares. Just wondering.
Well, I mean, there's issues everywhere. A company might have, all those software they want in place, but if the employees and, the different departments are doing things a certain way, and aren't actually, writing down their processes, then, there's not really much a company can do,
Yeah.
besides, force them to do it. I mean, there's times where I've gone to a client and, they were trying to work through one of their processes, and we get to a point where, like, okay, where's this data, how do you understand, this is the product that goes with this, and they're usually like, oh, I just know. And that's a big issue. It's called tribal knowledge. Employees
Tribal
that
knowledge.
have been at the company for 10, 15, 20 years. They they've gone through the whole process and they haven't written it down anywhere. They just know because they've done it for so long. And so what happens when that person leaves? The company is, for lack of a better word, fucked.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I immediately think of devs when you say that. It's just like a dev's not gonna write stuff down. They're just gonna do it though. I just I just thought of that. It was funny. But
Yeah. So tribal knowledge is a big issue. And I worked on, implementation for field service. And one of the biggest issues that I saw during when talking to this client is that, so the company essentially has all of their supplies that they use to, fix their customers' equipments and their own equipment in specific warehouses all over the country. And so when, a specific thing needs to be done, if one warehouse doesn't have that, then they have to wait a couple days to have that shipped from another warehouse. But what they see is that a lot of these, warehouse people hoard a lot of the supplies that they have and don't actually report that information into the system, so that when, a call like this arises again, they don't have to wait so long. All they have to do is go and take that, product or supply and go do the service call. But what that does is that causes the company to not see that they actually have that in inventory, and then they keep buying the thing, and the company keeps losing money. So tribal knowledge, and then, employees and departments doing things that they're not really supposed to, also add to, data issues and things like that. So yeah, a lot of things need to fall in place and get fixed before a company can really decide whether they want to apply AI to something.
Yeah, it comes back to the controls, there's got to be consistent practice. We had a client as well that everything was run off of spreadsheets and tribal knowledge, and
Excel's an
that meant,
ERP, right?
and well, they would go out. Well, their job was to decide the value of something, right? Okay, but every single person not only recorded the data differently, because it was just in Excel spreadsheets, and they had like a
Shorthand.
template that was like how they were supposed to do it, but
Mhm.
most of them just created their own method. And so you could have, you know, person one go and evaluate the same items and get, come out with a completely different value than someone else. So, the company looks at it completely different based on that, who valued it at what, right? So, but it was super inconsistent, and they didn't want to implement better controls because the employees were, they weren't big on the change of it, and they wanted to keep doing it themselves because they felt like it was better. And, the higher ups in the company were having too much of a difficult time getting everybody to agree. So they just gave up. They were just like, well, give us a foundation and we'll just continue letting them do it their own way. Or like, it's probably not a good idea. And yeah, so you see it way more than I think you would think, right? Like companies just not having the right controls in place, and then kind of getting bullied by the people that have, maybe the employees that are lower level that have been there for a while, doing this job for a while, and they just don't want to change. And so then the companies are like, well, we can't just let everybody go because they're being a pain on this, So it's yeah, I mean, you have to have proper controls in place from the jump, and you have to stay on top of that because you just see so many issues. And I mean, you think about, like we're consultants, right? We get called in to look at things and do stuff, and we get hands-on with stuff. Imagine if a company's not got the proper controls in place, and some random person, from a consulting firm or from, Meta had something with some WhatsApp individuals, like You never know whoever you're letting into your system, if you don't have the proper controls in place there, security controls, whatever it may be, you have no idea what they'll do. So whether it's your employees' practices, whether it's security practices, anything a part of your company needs to be under proper controls and planning.
Speaking of control, what's this thing I hear about OpenAI and Microsoft restructuring their deal, Aiden?
Yeah, so it's cool. It's funny that you bring it up because we both shared the same article when we were talking about it. I saw it on LinkedIn first. So apparently OpenAI and Microsoft struck a deal. They're in this deal. So OpenAI, or I'm sorry, Microsoft has now a 27% stake in OpenAI, valued at like 150 billion bucks, is from what the article said. And they also they're locked into this deal until 2032 or until you said they reach AGI, I believe. So whichever is first, which I don't think AGI is going to happen. So it'll probably be 2032. And then another cool thing about the article that was saying that OpenAI in this deal also agreed to oh, what you call it, agreed. I think it was 250. They agreed to use about $250 billion worth of Microsoft Azure's services in this deal. So that, that's another little valuable, big value add for Microsoft there. So and we're seeing a lot of these deals just like come out, especially with OpenAI. Chris, you kind of mentioned earlier, just like it feels like they're all over the place right now. And then earlier we kind of talked about like Anthropic and Google's deal on compute. And I guess, do you guys see more of this? Do you guys see like more of these types of big deals happening in the future? Like just because of the great utilization of AI and just like the age of AI that we're in?
I mean, I think the biggest issue is, we see all these deals and we see, OpenAI, pledging to spend this much cloud, spend, and they've done this for, how many different cloud companies. But if you actually look at their books, they're not really making enough profit to even reach these, spends that they say that they're going to spend. So, I mean, at some point, you think, where's this money coming from? AI is great, having enough, resources and you know, data centers and services to actually be able to run these AI models is great, sure. But there are a lot of data centers and stuff out there that aren't even being utilized. Plus, these are massive deals, and OpenAI is what, valued at 500 billion,
We'll
but
see.
their
Yeah.
revenue isn't even close to being able to even pay back these deals that they're making. So at some point, the rooster's going to come to roost, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
have a couple, I think what we've seen in the last decade is, especially in the last like 5 or 6 years, right, is this new movement behind investments that don't always, like, people aren't always looking at like the price to earnings ratio and stocks, and they're not always looking at, there's like a social aspect now, more so than there's ever been. Because look at Tesla. Tesla for the first, what, 5 years? I mean, in 2020, it skyrocketed, but Tesla's almost never been on par with the price to earnings ratio, right? Which is what normally people are looking at. Okay, that, those types of numbers and like projected value and stuff like that, and looking at, this is how much they're investing, so they're not profitable right now. What are they investing in? What's their, research and development looking like? That kind of thing. But, there's several companies, the energy bubble, like 2020 to 2024, I want to say 2023, also insane. Whether it was hydrogen, electric, that stuff was all popping off. People were investing in hydrogen with no idea what hydrogen energy was even like powered by, or how it was put together, any of that stuff. So, you know, we
Hydrogen. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't know. Okay, well, there's different types of, there's different types of hydrogen, like how it's generated and stuff like that. Like there's green hydrogen, like gray hydrogen, like whatever. Like there's different ways they generate it.
What
So
about
like
like blue hydrogen?
I don't remember all of it, but I got really deep in the rabbit hole back then because I saw everybody was buying into it and I was just curious. But some of that was more future proof than others, right? And none of the companies were making, like Tesla was I think at one point their stock value was like 7 times what their actual price to earnings ratio would have recommended it at. And I'm sure it got way over that. But companies like that, I think right now you look at OpenAI and it's like, are they actually valued at that from a numbers perspective? Hell no. But
Hmm.
what's their research and development look like? I mean, you're seeing like these little kind of, it's not talked about much right now, but they have been laying the groundwork for an IPO. People I think IPO in the future that's valued at about a
That'd be
trillion dollars.
crazy. That would sell quicker than
Yeah,
it's
it's
quicker
valued
than
at
air.
$1 trillion.
That's
And
insane.
so that could be something they're holding in their back pocket of like, okay, um, if we get into a pickle, we'll just go IPO, you know? So much
Yeah.
for open, so much for it being a fundraise type thing or whatever it was. Like it's I mean, they're not hiding behind it anymore. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they should change their name to Opened AI.
well,
Like
I mean,
I
this
think
typing
was
opened.
this
I
was a
think it's a
brilliant
social
deal by
aspect
Microsoft
though.
in general. I mean,
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they have the premier like whatchamacallit. See, I did a quick Google search and it says like OpenAI holds 17% of the market share in Gen AI, which is
yeah.
insane. That's like a phenomenal deal for them.
Well,
I mean,
Amazon has a massive investment in it, like their AWS,
yeah,
like there's major players, Microsoft, AWS, Oracle, like all of these, I mean, Apple, all of these major tech companies are putting tens of millions, hundreds of millions, tens of billions on Amazon's part. Like it is massive.
yeah. I mean, I think Microsoft has done a great job positioning itself within with this new restructuring deal. I mean, they have OpenAI models until 2032. They have a 27% investment. If OpenAI reaches AGI, it's stipulated that Microsoft does have access to those models.
That's insane.
So plus OpenAI is essentially using their compute, so they're getting money from that as well. So they don't have really much risk in terms of how much what Microsoft is valued at in general. So I think this was a master play by Microsoft in general. Their current spend is what 13.8 billion, but their current essentially the amount of money they have around a 10 times investment. I think their current investment now is worth 135 billion, which is crazy. So they only invested 13.8 billion. They're getting OpenAI to use their cloud services, but now their investment is worth 10 times what it was.
And only to grow.
So I have some numbers here that I'd like to share. So for OpenAI, as of 2025, OpenAI is valued at 300 billion following a significant funding round from SoftBank. So it says that OpenAI's valuation reached 300 billion, and then after a 40 billion funding round led by SoftBank in March 2025.
Mhm.
So I mean, and they're having like if you and then on their financial performance, they're generating approximately 12.7 billion in revenue from last year in 2024, which was only 3.7. So I mean, and you're seeing this growth year over year, like 243% increase. And then despite the revenue growth, OpenAI also reported a loss of 5 billion in 2024 and is projected to incur losses of 14 due to high operating expenses, which are exceeded expected to exceed like 28 billion. But that makes sense, there's with all that growth, you're obviously spending money on your compute and everything. And then earlier you were talking about Microsoft. So it looks like their current spending on AI investments is substantial. We all know that. So reported 35 billion spent in July through September during that quarter. What was that Q2? So it's exponentially increasing year over year. And
Hmm.
it's just like it makes sense. Like all the cars, I guess, are aligning, and it makes sense like that. Like the Microsoft deal with OpenAI just makes sense. Like, why wouldn't you do it, kind of thing. And so I just thought it'd be cool to share those numbers to kind of give validity to what we're saying.
Yeah, I mean the Microsoft deal is good and makes sense from a numbers perspective, but all of the other that massive AMD deal, massive Nvidia deal, massive AWS deal, like I mean you even read their revenue numbers and their losses. The numbers do not add up unless they somehow make exponential increase in the amount of costs and they lower or they lower the amount of costs and they somehow make exponential revenue in the next year or so, and that continues to compound. It just not realistic.
Yeah, I think kind of also what we've talked about in the past is OpenAI, ChatGPT, they're not really focused on efficiency as much as they're focused on get it bigger. We want it bigger, 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 bigger.
Yeah.
They're not focused on where can we make this more efficient? Where I feel like they could position themselves a lot better if they slowed down for a year, focused on efficiency, focused on some of the more practicality type things. Um, and it almost feels like they're making these deals as bailouts more than anything, as like supports because it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna use NVIDIA, but imagine if they just focused on making not only how they power all of this, how these data warehouses are operating, that they're basically just making deals with all these companies and hoping things work out. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple years when the hype dies down, they're like, "Oh, look, everybody, we're IPOing," and then sends the hype back up again. Because
Mhm.
everybody's gonna want to ride the train and see where they can go.
Hmm.
I swear to God, like to this day, I think Bitcoin is solely at $100,000 just because FOMO. Everybody saw it going up and up and up, and everybody's like, I don't know what Bitcoin is, but people are making money off of it. How do I sell
Mhm.
it? How do I hold it? What's going on with it? I don't know. So I
Yeah.
think the markets are so susceptible to social pressure now, um, that it's so difficult to read. I mean, you think of like anything from the GameStop stuff a few years ago, like it's all so socially susceptible.
I think
So
that has always been the case, right? But now with the internet
yeah,
and AI,
yeah,
it's
that's what I
it's
mean
it's
though.
it's all
It's
exponential.
exactly, exactly. That's what I mean though, is everything's so much more accessible. Content creators and influencers are all the more influential, you know. It is, there's been talk of like, oh, the town center or whatever, right? And you know, in the past they would have to go somewhere to see someone speak about it, or maybe there'd be a couple people on the TV, right? There was never like hundreds of thousands, millions of people that were giving out their opinions all the time, so people are being driven different ways, whether people are like official or not. And the problem with like YouTube, right? YouTube has this thing, or there's regulations, right? Whenever I was doing financial advising, you had to be aware of it. Um, if you're like an official licensed financial advisor, you are not allowed to give certain advice on YouTube, right? So if you're registered as just regulation wise, like just I think what FCC or whatever it is, you are not allowed to advise people on like YouTube and stuff because it's seen as like market manipulation, right?
Mhm.
But Joe over here behind the counter at Ross can get on YouTube and tell you what you should buy, and that's okay. So you kind of see the effects and the impacts of that because that's where we're at in the world right now.
I
So,
feel like we
because
gotta do
who's
what
going to want to
China's been doing.
pay a financial advisor? Not a lot of people, especially our age.
I mean, I feel like we got to do what China's been doing. You guys see that thing where if an influencer wants to talk about a specific subject,
Oh,
they
they
have to
have to
be
have
like
a
certified or
yeah.
have
Yeah,
a
I
degree
saw
in it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
saw
actually
that
really
too.
cool.
Yeah,
I respect them for that.
Hold on. No, I'm just kidding.
it's like this is
No,
one of
I
the one of the one
the
of the things I actually agree with them on.
so the only thing I'll say about that I would be cautious of is manipulation of who's allowed to have certifications based on what they're saying. Because even in like Canada recently, they've been like stripping people of like degrees and certifications if they don't align with what they're supposed to align with. And so I assume in a place like China where it is communist and known to be a little bit, you know, they might
Authoritative.
yeah, they might manipulate who actually has those certifications and who doesn't. So that would be my
Yeah,
only
that's always the case, but the idea is sound and I think should be a thing.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you do say things that are flat out just wrong, I don't know, you should probably lose your license. I mean, it's basically
Yeah,
malpractice.
no, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. But there's a difference
But
between wrong, like officially
political
statistic.
political retribution should not be a thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Factual
Yeah.
exactly.
cases should cause certification
Hmm. I
Yeah.
feel
revocals
like
or
that, well,
whatever.
that has to be managed on a governing level, right? Though, not on like a company level.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be like a bar association or the medical board, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah. It would definitely make the insane amount of like conspiracy theory stuff dialed back a little bit too.
yeah,
Look, I love a good conspiracy theory, don't get me wrong. But
me too.
there's a
There's a
difference between
point.
someone being like, oh,
Yeah.
this is an interesting take on this versus this is real, this is what happened.
Oh my gosh, dude,
The
I
government
get
controls the weather.
Facts
actually
and the
they
birds.
I was gonna say, doesn't Dubai like actually can't they like artificially
It's called
call
cloud seeding.
okay,
Yeah,
cloud seeding?
Cloud City.
they
Yeah.
you essentially throw dust particles or essentially sand in the air, and then I mean that's just how science work. That's just how clouds
Gosh.
work.
So you make the air
Uh,
sneeze.
well, no. So essentially, snow and rain and stuff are formed around dust particles in the air. So when dust particles floating in the air, snow starts to encapsulate it, and that's how snow forms and clouds form, precipitation and stuff. It's because all the particulates in the air, they soak up all the moisture, and that creates sand, rain clouds. Once the cloud gets heavy enough,
Interesting.
it starts pouring rain, and same thing with snow and stuff. So
It's
essentially
called
they
the water
took,
cycle.
yeah, I guess, but essentially they took nature and re-engineered it to you know make rain so that they
Yeah.
didn't
But they
die
have like
of
their reasons behind
thirst.
it.
uh
Yeah.
Yeah, they
so
need
they
rain over
actually
there
ended up,
probably.
like, I think it was like last year or a few months ago, where like Dubai was like flooding. I'm like, you guys made too much rain.
Hey,
That's
look, it needs some
crazy.
tweaking. It needs some tweaking.
That sounds like an Onion headline. Desert gets flooded.
It's like that movie where they created that like satellite system to control weather, and it goes like haywire, like Geostorm. You guys remember that movie?
Oh yeah, dang. That's a
Yeah, kind of like
throwback.
that, but on a obviously smaller scale.
Geostorm.
I should see that movie again. That was a
Oh
decent.
yeah, with Gerard Butler, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
A lot of
Speaking of things going haywire, what is the security risk article we posted about AI
oh
browser
the
agents?
the Perplexity agentic shopping tool that Amazon's waving their a big no-no to. So basically, Amazon is accusing Perplexity of security risks because of this like agentic shopping feature that allows which uses automation to place orders for users. And so Amazon is basically calling them out for this and saying that Perplexity is threatening the user. And it also added that it threatens the future of AI assistants in general. And so I don't know, have you guys used Comet AI, which is the agent? I know Sahib, you said you used it a little bit. How does it work exactly? Is it yeah, like how does it work?
Yeah, I mean it's essentially just you have a regular browser. It's built on Chromium, just like a standard browser architecture, and then it's basically just has like a sidecar, just like any other application that has chat functionality. You click it, and you have your normal Perplexity AI chat, but then you can tell it like, hey, go to this website, do this, which essentially then it just uses computer use, which essentially creates its own browser window and essentially does everything you ask it to. So, you know, this has brought up a lot of security concerns because, prompt injection, prompt engineering is a thing. And, OpenAI came out with their whatever it's called, the Atlas browser. There's other browsers out there, but it there's no way currently to stop your browser from reading a specific web page, and there might be specific hidden text that you can't see but the browser can see. So like, and so that causes prompt injection and causes the agent to buy things they're not supposed to, do things they're not supposed to, release information that they're not supposed to, or fill out forms with information that they're not supposed to. So there's definitely lots of issues with that. So one of the reasons why I stopped using it, I mean, it was cool because I got to, see what it was like, etc. But that's definitely a big issue, and they even admitted that they have no way to fight that. So, but yeah, going back to that Amazon thing, I think it's more of the fact that they're going to probably lose ad revenue and click revenue because users aren't actually, going to the website and getting distracted by, all the products there. You have an AI that you tell the AI to do something specific. It's not gonna, look at, a bunch of different outfits because, it can't actually think and it can't actually try on these clothes.
Yeah.
So uh Amazon's just gonna lose a lot of money that way, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they're pushing back.
I wonder if it's price sensitive. So like if you say agent, like I need some toilet paper, like is it gonna go for the best quality or I wonder if that's like parameters that you set if you once you query the agent. It's probably once you query it, you would set
I mean,
those
it
parameters.
I mean, so the use case I did was, as a consultant, I travel a lot, so I made it go to my travel website and find flights for me, and then it gave me a list of flights that I could essentially book if I wanted to, and tell it to book. So I'm assuming it's kind of the same way with Amazon, where it says, "Hey, I filtered search results for these types of toilet paper, and which one should I buy for you or something."
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, so and in this specific instance, Amazon is accusing Perplexity of covertly accessing private Amazon customer accounts through its Comet browser and is saying that it's disguising automated activity as human browsing. So that could pose, I guess, security risks to like customer data and just in general. So I mean, I guess it makes sense. I don't know. Do you guys see? I don't really see a use case though for automated AI agents buying things. I would just rather like do it myself or like you know how Amazon has that like predictive analytics things like oh based on your past purchases you might want to buy X, Y, and Z. I don't know whatever. I feel like I don't know. I wouldn't use an AI agent in
I
like for
mean, it
You can
shopping.
also set up
saves
like
time.
recurring purchases, but yeah, but I don't know. I'm with Aiden. I don't really see because like in Amazon you can set up recurring purchases, so
I
your
mean,
toilet
I
paper.
don't personally, see a use case for it, but I mean, I did enjoy not having to find my own flights. That was great.
Yeah, that
Oh,
makes
that's
sense.
I
true.
hate doing
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
But that whole security thing just doesn't make sense unless Amazon admits that they have, you know,
yeah, that's what I was gonna
malicious
say.
like text in their website.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
stored
people
openly.
give common consent and their user credentials to go and do the stuff, and then I'm sure they don't let Comet do whatever the heck they want. So unless Amazon is admitting that they have malicious code in their website, built into their website, or malicious text, like that security thing doesn't really make sense. I think
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
more of the fact that they're going to be losing revenue because people aren't distracted by pretty colors. So
No, I 100% agree. I don't see why there's a huge problem with someone saying, like you said, I want to order this toilet paper. Okay, well, why do I need, like, where's the problem there? Like, I could see, like, maybe there's somewhere in the logging in process, but even then, like you said, it's like, it's logging in. I think the biggest problem would be, people could be concerned about, like, their login information being stolen, but that would be on Perplexity's side, and,
plus that would be
unless
the
Amazon
user
is,
doing it, not
yeah,
the user consenting, not
oh yeah,
it's
I
not
guess
like
they would be
Amazon is.
prompted.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's
it's
what I'm saying. It doesn't make, where's the security threat with this? I don't really see it because all you're doing is prompting it to make a purchase or add something to a list or give you a recommendation. So it feels more like Amazon has spent money on their own agentic stuff and their own technology that they're like, well, we want everybody to use our stuff. And like you said, we have these recommendations. When you go in, you have these tiles like you were just looking at, um, recommended, blah, 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 right? On your list. So it's like, oh, here's stuff that's on sale, like all these things in your face. It's the same effect of like going into Walmart. You ever go into Walmart hungry? And you're like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
came in here to buy one thing, but you're hungry. So you're like, this other thing looks good. This thing also looks good. You know what? I'm just gonna go get a cart real quick. You know? So it's like kind of that effect of we want to get you in our door, and that way you start looking around a little bit, maybe spend a little bit extra money. Even if you don't, the technology that we've invested in has, we can show our shareholders, look at the value, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'd leave it. I think we should watch it and see what exactly Amazon's going to come up with.
Yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
for sure.
All in fun. But yeah, thank you for watching the today's video.
Capitalism.
Yes, give us money. Crazy.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.